The first VR MMORPG, Sword Art Online, quickly turned from leisure to nightmare after its creator, Akihiko Kayaba, revealed that if you die in the game, you die in real life. Some panicked and lost all hope, while thousands died. But the rest, well, they were determined to survive. Kirigaya Kazuto, an ex-beta tester, decided to play solo after watching countless friends and players die, some by his own hand, until he met Asuna, who became a light in the darkness. Together, with the friends that did survive, they were able to end the nightmare early, when Kayaba, who turned out to be the final boss, was defeated. Now Kazuto is determined to find Asuna in the real world. He's back at their home on the 22nd floor, sitting on their porch, with Asuna asleep beside him. Inside, an apple falls off the table. Suddenly, the world starts falling apart. The sky turns red, and space starts to crumble away. He's Kirito, dressed as the Black Swordsman again, when Kazuto wakes up with a start from another nightmare. After spending 2 years in Sword Art Online, he still hasn't fully adjusted. Sugu, his sister, still practiced kendo in between hospital visits while he was comatose. Kazuto challenges her to spar. She notes him taking an odd stance. He's still used to the weight of a real sword, but ends up losing anyway. When Sugu asks what he's up to, Kazuto looks at the ground and solemnly says he's visiting the hospital again to see Asuna. She's still in a coma 2 months after the incident. He told the Ministry of Internal Affairs everything he knew about SAO in return for her location. While visiting the hospital, Asuna's father appears, thanking him for visiting his daughter so often. He knows it would make her happy. His business partner's son, Nobuyuki Sugo, shows up ecstatic to meet the bona fide hero Kirito in person. Her father leaves the two alone, and Sugo gives up the act. Apparently, Sugo is eager to tie the knot, marrying into Asuna's family. Kazuto's face turns to horror when he mentions marrying the girl he loves. The company Argus was forced into bankruptcy, but the SAO servers were taken over by Wrecked Progress, Asuna's father's company, where Sugo works. He claims he has a right to her, since he's the one working to keep the servers alive, and Asuna by extension. Threatening Kazuto if he ever comes back to visit, he gives him the concession of inviting him to the wedding, infuriating Kazuto. Back at home, Kazuto breaks down as Sugu comforts him. It turns out that they are technically not siblings, but still, she doted on him the entire time that he was under. Unable to truly express how she feels, she also breaks down and falls asleep next to him. The next morning, Kazuto tries waking her up. When she comes to, she starts freaking out, her face turning bright red. She runs out of the room. Kazuto receives an email from Egil with a picture of someone who looks like Asuna. Kazuto goes to meet Egil, IRL, at his bar to inquire about the picture he sent. It turns out that it's a screenshot from another VR MMO, Alfheim Online, basically SAO's successor, though now with more fairies and less murder. Apparently, there's an area called the World Tree at the center of the map where the screenshot was taken. Though nobody has made it to the top, there's another screenshot of a birdcage that was taken by someone who came close. Kazuto asks to borrow Egil's copy and notices that it's made by Wrecked Progress. Sugu thinks about the night before when Kazuto shows up, startling her. He thanks her for last night. He's still not quite sure how to deal with the psychological burden the past few years have placed on his shoulders. He dons the nerve gear once again, choosing one of the 9 races, a Spriggan, naming himself Kirito. He's teleported into the game and begins falling, only to freeze mid-air. Something's not right. A black pixelated void opens, sending him to the middle of a forest. Checking the menu, he's relieved to find the choice to log out. He still has all his gear and skills from SAO. A bug? Remembering a certain unique item, he frantically searches, relieved when he finds and uses it to revive Yui. She still has her memories from SAO. After asking her to assess the system, Yui analyzes the game and finds that it's basically an SAO port. After Argus went under, Wrecked Progress took the reins. Apparently, he has the same character data and everything that's compatible was transferred over, except for all his items, which he deletes before error detection notices. He still has his skills though. He's not a beater, he's a cheater. Yui is being identified as a navigation pixie though, and she doesn't have admin privileges. He tells her that Mommy might be trapped at the World Tree, and he's there to save her. But before they can get going, she alerts him to players in the area. 2 fairies wearing green, Leafa and Rekon, are fending off multiple enemies wearing red. When Rekon dies and Leafa becomes cornered, Kirito steps in, falls in, and overpowers them, killing 2 while the third would rather not lose anything and runs away. Leafa decides not to fight after seeing his ludicrous display, and Yui pops out, calling him daddy, which she finds odd, obviously. She teaches him to fly without using the controller, which he immediately gets the hang of, as they head to a Sylph, another race's, town. Rekon is overjoyed to see Leafa, but she decides to ditch their party in favor of getting a drink with Kirito. He asks about the World Tree. Nobody has made it, since all races can only fly for a maximum of 10 minutes. Whoever's race makes it to the top first gets unlimited flight time. Kirito becomes frustrated. There must be a way to make it to the top. He has to, no matter what. Leafa is curious as to why. His demeanor changes, and he explains that there's someone he needs to find. He thanks her and walks out. But before he can leave, she stops him and offers to help. They both log off, promising to meet tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the birdcage at the top of the World Tree, someone calls the girl sitting there longingly to Tanya, indulging in her misery. She demands Sugo, the system admin, call her by her real name, Asuna. But he taunts her, saying he's Obeiron, the Fairy King, and she's his bride. He's been using 300 test subjects from SAO as guinea pigs in his experiment. He's attempting to alter people's memories and influence their emotions, and plans to take over Rekt and sell the company. Asuna threatens to call the police when she wakes up, though she's terrified when she finds out she's one of the 300. Trying to learn the door code is futile as it's blurred out. She falls to her knees, pleading for Kirito to find her and save her. Sugu fell in love with Alfheim after becoming curious about why Kazuto was so enamored with VR gaming, despite her resentment towards them for stealing 2 years of her brother's life. Rekon, Shinichi, confronts Sugu in real life, informing her that Sigurd and the rest of the party are getting together later, but she refuses to join them. Both siblings log on and meet up in-game, but before they can dip, Sigurd and 2 of his lackeys show up, demanding she stay with the party, while taking the RP in RPG a little too seriously. Leafa tells them to beat it, with Kirito backing her up. Before he can make a scene, Sigurd's henchmen remind him not to sully his name by attacking a mere Spriggan renegade, and they storm off in a ridiculously exaggerated fashion. Yet again, the pair are interrupted. This time it's Rekon, the spineless, trademarked, who bravely offers Leafa his sword, only to immediately rescind the offer to stay behind and do some recon. Sigurd and co. are acting even more, but this time it's shady. Back in the cage, Sugo is still being a creep. He continues provoking Asuna, revealing that he knows Kirito is Kazuto. He explains his plan to marry her unconscious body and even sent Kazuto an invitation. He leaves, and she learns the key code by looking in a mirror. Kirito and Leafa decide to take a rest. Since they're not in town, they have to log out separately and watch the other's avatar. Sugu goes first, almost checking on her brother, but she decides not to, confused about her feelings for both him and now Kirito. When Kirito logs off, Yui can act independently, and Leafa wonders about their relationship. Flustered when Kirito logs back on, Leafa explains tracking magic when he becomes suspicious of someone following them. They have to travel through an underground mountain pass, where Kirito practices his illusion magic, which is useless in combat, according to Leafa. Yui notices around 12 players following them. Trying to hide, Kirito sees a bat with red eyes. It's salamander tracking magic. They book it to the underground town. Before they make it to the gates, a magic wall appears, blocking their way. It looks like they'll have to make a stand. Kirito tells Leafa to stay back and act as support as he charges the Salamander's forces. But they're throwing everything they have at him. He gets rocked by fireballs, one after another, but he keeps getting back up. Leafa keeps healing him while telling him dying is only a minor setback. She's taken aback when his whole demeanor changes. As long as he's still kicking, nobody dies on his watch. Never again. Kirito screams while charging the Salamanders. Yui realizes he's going all out and tells Leafa to use the rest of her mana pool to heal him during his next attack. Leafa doesn't really know what's going on, but shields him anyway. He's using illusion magic? Kirito turns into the blue-eyed demon, who's blue-eyed in name only, and goes berserk, killing all but one. He offers the survivor all the loot from the fight for information. Apparently, there's a salamander army on the move, but he doesn't know why. Leafa logs off and checks her phone, discovering that she has a ridiculous number of missed calls from Shinichi. She answers the next call, discovering that Sigurd is a traitor working with the Salamanders. Logging back on, she tells Kirito she has to go. There's a conference between the Sylphs and the Cat Seeds, which is where the Salamander army will strike, ruining any chance of an alliance. Leafa says she'd understand if Kirito switched sides for a better chance to reach the World Tree, but he explains that even if it's a virtual world, there are some things you have to protect, still feeling guilty about the blood on his hands. They make a run for the exit and fly as fast as they can to the meeting place. They make it just in time. Leafa tells the Sylphs leaders to trust him. He's their only shot at saving their peace talks. Kirito confronts Eugene, the Salamander commander, claiming to be an ambassador for the Spriggan Undine alliance. If he makes a move, all four factions will wage war against the Salamanders. But Eugene doesn't believe a lone Spriggan with trash gear is an ambassador and challenges him. If Kirito can last 30 seconds, he'll take him at his word. Eugene's sword can phase through any sword or shield used to block it. Allegedly, he's the most powerful player. He rescinds his word after 30 seconds are up. It's a fight to the death. After disappearing in a cloud of smoke, Kirito borrows Leafa's sword and attacks from above, surprising Eugene. The sword can't phase through attacks. His dual wielding is unparalleled. After beating Eugene, the player who fled when Kirito first saved Leafa, he lies, saying he saw him with an Undine the other day. Convinced he's an ambassador, Eugene orders retreat. Leafa explains the situation to the Sylph and the Cat Seeds leaders. Sigurd's even slimier than a salamander. The Sylph's leader uses a mirror to contact him and banishes him for being a traitor. Kirito admits to making everything up, saying he's just a sword for hire. He gives them enough money to prepare for their assault on the World Tree, the reason for their alliance in the first place. Once they're ready, they promise to help him on his quest. Back at the World Tree, the bird has left the nest, or cage. When the two arrive in Ahrun, the largest city in Alfheim, and the base of the World Tree, they hear an announcement informing players that servers will be unavailable for maintenance. Asuna, now free, tries to find a GM console to log out, only to find a room filled with holographic brains seemingly in some sort of pain. It's the data center for Sugo's experiments. In the real world, Sugu is disappointed when Kazuto declines to hang out with her in favor of visiting Asuna. She asks to go to the hospital with him. On the bus, Kazuto explains that they're setting up a school specifically for SAO survivors. Meanwhile, Asuna hides from two purple creatures running the experiments. Looking for the console, she's captured before she can log out. The boss tells them to put her back in the cage and change the code. She manages to steal a GM access code. At the hospital, Sugu realizes that it might have been a mistake to go there. After they log back in, Kirito tries comforting Leafa, who breaks down, saying she just got her heart broken. Nobody can ever know she's in love with her own brother. Yui confirms that Asuna is at the top of the tree, according to her player ID. Despite knowing that flying to the top is impossible, Kirito, overwhelmed with emotions, immediately takes off without thinking. The barrier blocks him, but Yui's voice breaks through. Asuna drops the access card. Catching it only confirms his fears, making him even more determined. Leafa warns him again how impossible it is to reach the top, even with an army of players, let alone by himself. He refuses to listen and enters the dome, taking on the grand quest. With his anger fueling him, he quickly cuts down the first wave. But his will alone isn't enough to fend off the army of enemies guarding the World Tree. The screen flashes a message he thought he'd never see. You're dead. He thought he could do anything, that he was unstoppable as a solo player. But even in SAO, he couldn't do it alone. Leafa rushes in and recovers his flame before it disappears, reviving him on the steps to the dome. She tries to talk him down, but he won't listen. He has to save Asuna. Leafa is in shock. She can't believe it. Kazuto? Eyes wide, he realizes it's been Sugu the whole time. But before he can say anything, she logs out. It's not fair. She lies dazed before bursting into tears. She tells Kazuto to leave when he knocks on her door. She answers, confessing her feelings for him. She knows they're not brother and sister. He became so distant when he found out as a child. She realized she was in love with him. Jealous of the way he talks about Asuna, she tried to move on, but ended up falling in love with him all over again as Kirito. Unable to look her in the eye, he apologizes, while she tells him off and closes the door. He was only 10 when he found out. Always feeling different, he distanced himself, playing online games to cope. Kazuto tells her to meet in-game. She logs on to find Rekon, who confesses his love for her, only to be kicked down some stairs while she laughs, unsure of what to say. Leafa meets Kirito at the North Terrace of Alrun, and she challenges him to a rematch. They begin dueling, but end up embracing mid-air. Kirito confesses that he hasn't returned to the real world yet. He's still stuck in SAO. The game never ended for him. But if he can save Asuna, maybe he can save himself at the same time. Yui analyzes the Guardians. They're not very strong, but there are so many that beating the quest seems impossible by design. Rekon tries to help them, but the Guardians are overwhelming. Even when Rekon uses a self-destruct spell, clearing the way, the Guardians still swarm like a plague of locusts. It's hopeless, until the Sylphs and the Catseeds show up, after preparing for the raid with the money Kirito gave them. Leafa throws him her sword. With the help of the other players, he forces his way through the swarming Guardians and pierces the door in the ceiling. But Yui discovers that players aren't meant to open it. The quest really is unbeatable. If he can't beat it, it's time to cheat it. Yui uses the Access Card's code to override the door. He's in. They teleport to the hallway Asuna found herself in after her first attempt at escape. Yui uses her limited abilities to create a path. There's no city at the top. It's all a lie. They find Asuna, but can't log her out. She remembers where the console is, so there's a chance when Kirito suddenly falls to the floor, unable to move. Yui disappears, warning them there's something coming. It's Sugo. He taunts Kirito, revealing his experiment and the truth about Alfheim. Cackling, confident that he's won, he chains Asuna up by the wrist. Sugo stabs Kirito with his own sword while using admin privileges to decrease the pain threshold, while Kirito watches, powerless. On the verge of blacking out, Kirito hears a voice asking if he's giving up. Was their battle a joke? It's Kayaba, giving him the will to go on and his own admin privileges, which outrank Sugo's. He tries summoning Excalibur, which Kirito gladly does for him. He picks up his own sword and decreases the pain absorber to 0, enough to affect their bodies in real life. Kirito cuts him down with ease, severing his right hand. He tosses Sugo into the air, piercing him with his sword as Sugo falls, crying and screaming. After freeing Asuna, he breaks down. He's not a hero. He doesn't have any power. Regardless, he's her hero if nobody else's. She logs out, and he promises to visit her in the hospital as soon as he can. He asks Kayaba, or at least the digital ghost of whatever's left of him, if it's over, and he hands Kirito a golden egg he calls the Seed. Maybe Kayaba wasn't just bored after all. Upon waking up, Sugu is standing over him. overjoyed that he's okay. Kazuto begins apologizing, but she says it's okay. Go to her, which is exactly what he does. When he arrives at the hospital, something slices his right arm. It's Sugo, stepping out of the shadows with a knife. He's lost it and threatens to kill Kazuto, calling him weak. Finding his will to live, he disarms Sugo. Overcome with rage and plagued by memories, holding the knife to Sugo's throat, Kazuto comes to his senses before following through. In the hospital, Asuna is finally awake, and they meet for real at last. A few months later, they begin their first semester at the SAO Survivors School. Sugo was arrested that night in the parking lot, and VR MMOs fell by the wayside after all the terrible tragedies and human experimentation that befell the players. Apparently, Kayaba committed suicide, but Kazuto knows he successfully uploaded his consciousness. He spoke with him when he received the World Seed, saying he'd know what to do with it. All of the players they've befriended meet up at Agil's bar. The seed has been spreading since they released it to the public. It turns out that it's a program allowing for the creation of VR MMORPGs, which are springing up all over. They even recreate the floating castle from SAO in Alfheim. This time, he swears he's going to beat all 100 floors. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.